Back in the day, I always wished someone would explain to me a full flight in a jet. What they are doing, what they are thinking, and this is what I'll do in this video. In this video, I'll narrate and explain as much as I can without having to pause the video. I'll explain what I'm thinking, not right now as I watch, but what I was thinking in the cockpit at that moment in time. When I used to fly smaller piston aircraft, I always was so curious about flying jets. I remember being at my mechanic once, and I saw a Citation in the hangar, and I was so wishing I could just sit in the cockpit just for a few seconds, but I was too shy to ask. There is, in my opinion, an unjustified mystique about flying jets. Are there more systems in a jet and are more complicated in that respect? Sure. But if you could fly a Cessna 172 well in IMC, with a type rating and some practice, you can be well on your way to becoming a proficient jet pilot. That's my opinion. So let's try out this narrator format and see if it'll be fun. I didn't record myself doing the cockpit pre-inspection, but I did do it. But that's real quick, where I just go through every single button in the cockpit to make sure that it's in its normal position, and nobody's been in there tinkering around, even though this should never be. But you know, and then amongst other things, I check the oxygen level and plug in my oxygen mask. I will also note that at this point, my wife and son and dad are not in the airplane. I don't want anybody in the airplane while I'm doing all this stuff because I don't want the pressure, I don't want to feel rushed. So I do this all by myself in there. I pick up the clearance, I review the departure, and do the cockpit pre-inspection items. So now I'm going to jot down KHIO, which is my destination. I'm going to jot that down on my notepad because I'm about to pick up my clearance. I just put the battery switch on the EMER mode. It's not normal on because the EMER mode just powers on the radios. So I'm not wasting valuable energy out of the battery because I want to keep the battery as fresh as possible for a nice cool engine start. So again, in EMER mode, I don't feel like I'm in a rush. Because it really doesn't use a lot of electricity. So right now I'm just waiting for the comms to boot up. I will be listening to the ATIS because the only reason I won't be listening to the ATIS at this point is if it's like 50 minutes past the hour, because by the time I start the engines and ready to taxi, I'll need a new ATIS anyway. Okay, right now what I'm doing is just putting ground back on the main comm and putting tower on the standby.
Brent on ground, good afternoon. Good evening, Citation 70 Charlie Golf, IFR, Hillsborough, please.
Citation 70 Charlie Golf, front and ground, good evening. Clear to Hillsborough Airport via the Bellevue for departure, then as filed. Climb via the SID. Expect flight level 230, 5 minutes after departure. To departure exceed 19.2, squawk 4604. And next will be the Renton 3 departure, then as filed.
November 70 Charlie Golf, cleared to Hillsborough, Renton 3, then as filed, climb via the SID. Expect 230 in 5 minutes, departure 119.2, squawk 4604.
Citation 70 Charlie Golf, feedback correct.
Okay, so I picked up my clearance. I'm turning the battery back to off from the standby position. And now I'll be looking at some other items that I need to accomplish. So flight controls free and clear. I'll set my pressurization for the cruise altitude. Okay, now I'm looking at the Renton 3 departure that they assigned me. Even though I've done it so many times, I still treat it like the first time. I'm noticing that it's fly heading 150, and then at 1,000 feet MSL, it's turn left to a heading of 130. So I'm just jotting that down real quick. Now I'm just confirming my engine settings, my takeoff thrust, and my speed bugs. I need to set my V1, VR, V2, VNR. I'll cover those in some other video. Now I'm turning on the master switch. This one does chew up a lot of battery. Okay, now I'm going to set both altimeters because I already got the ATIS. And I'll do a quick rotary test, testing the gear and the gear horn, testing the thrust reversers, testing the windshield over temp, then overspeed, and then annunciators. I'm gonna check for the flaps set for takeoff, and then electric trim disconnect for runaway trim situation. Set the takeoff elevator trim, and that's it. Battery back to off. Okay, it's probably 10 minutes later now, and I lock the doors and everybody's on board. So this is my before start checklist. Tailwinds, consider, engine covers and wheel chocks removed. I'll remove the tow sign here, the do not tow or okay to tow. Fuel caps down on the left, down on the right. I'll start the for-flight track logs. I like to work those manually, not let it do it automatically. And then battery switch back to on. Checking the cabin door light indicators so the doors are off. Checking the fuel. Setting the parking brake. Engine instrument warning indicators, no flags, and fuel quantity. Moving right along. Beacon and nav. Starting the right engine.
Ignition, oil pressure, I got fan, I got fuel flow.
It's very gusty, and that's why my yoke keeps moving like that.
I got fan, watching ITT.
Now I'm going to bump up the running engine up to about 50% N2 to help to assist with the left engine start. It's called a cross-gen start. Okay, that was a successful start. I'm gonna just do the ammeter checks. So I'm testing both generators, making sure they're sharing the load between each other. Now I'm putting inverter number 2 online, making sure it works, and we'll use inverter number 1 for the flight. Turn on the avionics, I'm turning on the AC, and turning on the cabin fan, and getting the ACM to work at max cold setting. So it's pretty hot inside the cockpit.
Okay, battery, avionics, inverter, ammeters we did, temperature control set, cabin fans on low, annunciators are normal. Jesus Christ.
Now I'm going to move right along to the before taxi checklist.
Squawk code.
Setting the squawk code. Then I'll set the initial altitude per the departure that we were assigned, the Renton 3.
Initial altitude. Seatbelt times. Gyro pressures in the green. Boots. Let's test them.
I'm turning on the de-ice boots right now, and I'm going to visually watch for them to inflate.
5, 6, flight plan. Renton to Hillsborough. Activate. Let's see what that looks like. We're going to be on GPS mode. Data we got, altimeters are set 3 times.
Plus 99 Delta, Renton Tower, KHIO on arrival.
I'm zooming out all the way on my Garmin 530 just so I can make sure that everything is sequenced all the way to Hillsborough. It may seem like I'm just waiting around doing nothing, but I am actually waiting. I'm waiting for the inverters to power up my HSI and the attitude indicator, so that way I can do an autopilot test. It's required for a single pilot operation. There it is, it just came up. And that's the test.
Heading mode. Start off with 150. And then we're going to turn to 130.
So what I did here is switch the 530 to VLOC so I could manually change the HSI to a heading of course of 130 to be a reminder of what I'm going to do at 1,000 feet. So we're going to climb out at 150.
0 Charlie Golf at ProFlight with Lima taxi.
So we're going to climb out on a heading of 150, and that's where the bug is set. And then at 1,000 feet, we're going to turn to where the HSI needle is pointed.
16 V Alpha, 70 Charlie Golf. Recog. Okay, runway 16. Clear left, clear right. Toga's arm.
Cessna 12 Whiskey, right turn Alpha 4, taxi Park B Alpha, Margaret Plank 6, good night.
Pitches. Headings. All three matching with all two matching with a compass. Altimeter is 3 times set, 3 times matching. And airspeeds are at 0.
Right now I'm testing the speed brakes, and I'm going to retract them with the left throttle.
Speed brakes.
Testing the thrust reversers.
Deploying. Steamer. That fast. Deploy.
Basically, I'm testing the emergency retraction of the thrust reversers.
Takeoff briefing to left departure, runway 16, anything below V196, we abort for any reason. It'll be a static takeoff. After that, we're going flying. Come back here if we need to. TPA is 1,500 feet if we need a longer runway. We can go to Boeing. Other than that, we're up on the Renton 3 departure.
16, could land, winds 190 at 14, gust 25.
Other than that, we're on the Renton 3 departure. It's heading 150, it is bugged, and heading mode is on. Until 1,000 feet. And then it's a heading of 130. And we have the reminder there on the CDI. Up to 3,000, we're armed. Any questions? Cross feeds off. And pressurization source on both confirmed. Flaps and elevator trim. Flaps are indicating elevator trim set. Flight controls.
So in a jet, it's for some reason acceptable to switch the tower way before we get to the runway and just let them know we're ready to go.
There you go. Renton Tower, good evening. Citation 70 Charlie Golf. We'll be ready at the end. Alpha 1.
Citation 70 Charlie Golf, Renton Tower, good evening. Hold short runway 16, arriving suspect.
Holding short 16, 70 Charlie Golf.
So what happens right now is that tower is just not going to clear us for takeoff. They have to check in with Seattle approach or Seattle departure so they can release us. There's going to be a lot of traffic coming out of Boeing, and they got to coordinate all that. And I think that's why it's okay to let them know that we're ready for departure before we even get to the hold short line, because they got to do all this coordination behind the scenes. So right now he said hold short because we're not released yet. So I got my parking brakes on right now, but still we don't trust them. You know, we're holding short. We don't want to accidentally roll onto the runway. One thing about the jet is that it's so smooth that if you put your head down and it starts rolling forward, you might not even notice it. While I'm waiting around, I'm just kind of setting my Aviation to the radar display. I'm not going to turn it on right now because I don't want to hurt anybody with radiation, but I'm just getting the display ready because I will need it because there's a lot of thunderstorms in the area. So I'm not going to trust ATC 100% to help me with avoiding thunderstorms, even though it is kind of part of the responsibility. Gonna have my weather radar on for real-time weather, and then I have the ADS-B weather on the fore-flight. But that has a slight delay to it. Like I think it's about 7 minutes old. So I'm just kind of waiting around. I know what's going on behind the scenes, so I'm not getting antsy or anything. Even if there is no landing traffic and it's completely quiet, I do understand that Tower has to coordinate with Seattle departure to make sure that I can be released. So there might be traffic coming out of Boeing that's going to kind of intercept my departure end of the runway there. So they're just not going to release me out until departure could take me and it's safe. So as I'm sitting here, I'm also aware that I'm burning about 400 pounds an hour. That's about 60 gallons per hour just sitting here. And that's why we pack a lot of extra fuel. Down low, even when we're stopped, the jets really drink a lot of fuel.
Citation 70 Charlie Golf, runway 16, clear for takeoff, winds 190 at 1 forecast 25.
Clear for takeoff, runway 16, 70 Charlie Golf.
So now I'm just going to run through the flow, and then I'll back it up with a checklist. So this is the before takeoff flow.
Finals clear. Parking brakes off. Landing lights are on. Ignition's on. Static and anti-collision. Annunciators are clear. And here's runway 16. I see it.
Southwest 419, right target evening, runway 16, clear land, where we parking today.
Pro flight northwest 419, clear to land.
So it's going to be a static takeoff, so I'm applying full brake pressure. And I'll get to about 80% fan and then release the brakes and advance the throttles from there.
Takeoff power set. I see two good engines. Airspeed's alive.
Slight down pressure on the yoke for positive steering.
Heading on a cross check. Rotate. On the brake. You're up.
117, 190, 13, gust 23.
Flaps are going up. All part of the flow. We'll get to the checklist later. Reducing the takeoff thrust to a climb thrust, so about 3% lower, so 90% N1 would even do it. We're only climbing to 3,000, so I really don't need that much power.
Contact departure CS70.
So it's 1,000 feet and my right hand is moving to the heading bug to the CDI reminder I set earlier to a heading of 130. So that's more important than contacting departure. I need to make this turn first.
1,400, climbing 3,000.
70 Charlie Golf, channel approach, Roger, radar contact, climb maintain 900,000.
900,000, 70 Charlie Golf.
So now we're going to go to 9,000, but we're still on that heading of 150 indefinitely per the procedure of the Renton 3 departure. Now it's time for the after takeoff checklist to see what we missed in the flows.
Wait, gear and flaps are up, engine into ice. We don't need.
Charlie Golf, fly heading 160.
160, 70 Charlie Golf. There's 160. Ignition normal, landing lights, yaw dampers on. Engine sync, pressurization, we're building a diff. There's our heading. Climb power, we'll deal with that later.
Charlie Golf, proceed direct to BUWZO, climb maintain 15,000.
BUWZO on 15,000, 70 Charlie Golf. Direct, BUWZO, enter, nav, turn on the autopilot. Ah, there you go. And it was 15,000, 15. And we're armed, and we're captured. Set direct, enter one more time. And for 20 degrees, we could do 92.
Alright, good evening.
So maybe I missed saying something earlier to you guys, but we're an indicated airspeed hold for the climb, so I chose a speed of about 160 to get a really good climb rate. Turning on the radar now because there is going to be thunderstorms in the area. And now what I'm going to do is tilt. So I'm going to point the radar down until I start painting ground.
Let's paint some ground. There's the ground. Up a little bit.
And then after you paint ground, then you just go up a little bit. That means you're at the lowest possible tilt without painting ground. Because if you paint ground, you're just going to think everything is thunderstorms.
Next checklist is the climb checklist 180. Let's look at the ADSB weather.
So there's a couple of things that make me pretty comfortable flying around thunderstorms. Is that I have the weather radar, I have the ADSB weather, but I also know that ATC is required to let me know of any heavy precipitation coming up in front of me. They won't actually let me fly through anything, and it's a day flight, so I could even visually see the thunderstorms. So with all these things, I'm feeling pretty confident that, you know, it will be a safe flight. So right now I'm moving the pitch command wheel down. It's going to point the nose down. As soon as I move that pitch command wheel, it's going to take me off the indicated airspeed hold. And I'm just kind of letting the airplane accelerate a little bit forward by pitching the nose down. And once I'm happy with the speed, I just turn back on IAS. A little bit earlier, I actually turned on the engine anti-ice because we're obviously in IMC. And it's not quite like 4 degrees Celsius, which is when we're required to turn on the engine anti-ice, but I know I'm going to need it, so I might as well, so I don't forget. So that's why it's on right now, and it's heating up the engine nacelles so they don't eat up a bunch of ice during the climb. So when I turned on the engine anti-ice earlier, you would have seen 2 annunciator lights on the annunciator panel, one for left and one for right anti-ice. And when they are on, it means that the engine anti-ice is not working properly. One of the indications that it's not working is that when they're not hot enough, when they didn't reach the target temperature. So it's normal for them to be on when we first turn it on because they're still cold. So within 2 minutes after turning them on, they get up to temperature and then the annunciator panel is clear. And right now you can see that the annunciator panel is clear, so that means they're both working.
All the attitude indicators are matching.
So that's kind of my pet peeve. I want to make sure that all 3 attitude indicators match between each other because I don't want to be in IMC with one of them, especially the one I'm looking at right in front of me, giving me wrong information. So when all 3 are matching, I'm very confident that the primary one is working fine.
0 Charlie Golf, contact Seattle Center 126.6.
26.6, 70 Charlie Golf.
I don't know if you guys could hear it, but there's a lot of rain noise hitting the windshield. So it's pretty loud in the cockpit, but you get used to it.
70 Charlie Golf, 12,600 climbing 15,000.
Aviation 70 Charlie Golf, Seattle City, good evening. There's a moderate heavy precipitation in Hillsborough, climbing maintained, flight level 230.
230, and if you have any suggestion to get around it, we'll appreciate it. 70 Charlie Golf.
Aviation 0 Charlie, Golf, Roger. Honestly, on your current course is kind of where most of the Seattle departures have been proceeding. I think at least most of the way until about Allen, at least when I'm depicting, you should be okay. If you do need anything, just let me know.
I appreciate it. 70 Charlie Golf.
So like I said earlier, ATC, I know ATC is required to let me know when there's heavy to moderate precipitation, and they are so helpful. You can always ask him, what can we do, where can we go to avoid it, but he's saying that I'm on a good path right now, so they're watching out for us.
Enough to do anything with, actually. And it's 127.65, we'll just punch that in.
Might as well get ahead of the airplane and put in the ATIS at Hillsborough on standby. It's always good to, any time you have nothing to do, find something to do that puts you more and more ahead of the airplane. feeling pretty good. It's a little bit bumpy. The engine anti-ice is working great, which is why my annunciator panel is clear. Up to 230, we're an indicated airspeed hold. We're armed. We popped out of the clouds. Now I'll be able to see thunderstorms a little bit better.
Direct Helen 70 Charlie Golf.
So he just gave me direct Helens, which gives me a slight left turn and a shortcut through the arrival, through the Helen 6 arrival. But I'm actually looking outside, and I'm not a huge fan of making this left-hand turn. It could get bumpy. It's not putting me in a thunderstorm, but I'm going to actually ask him for a slight deviation, like 10-15 degrees right here pretty soon. I put my altimeters on standard, kind of running through the flows of the my checklist, my cruise climb checklist that I do at 18,000 feet.
And center 70 Charlie Golf, can we have like 15 degrees right for weather?
Station 0 Charlie Golf, mend altitude climbing, maintain for the hold 200 and deviations right, of course, our approved.
Okay, 200 and deviation approved 070 Charlie Golf.
So that's part of the negotiation there. He's pretty much saying, okay, if you want to turn right a little bit, I could do it, but I can't really put you up to 230, which is what you requested for a cruise, but I really don't mind. 200 is fine. But again, they're super helpful. If there's any thunderstorms in the area, they want to work with us. They don't want to see us going inside of a thunderstorm.
We got almost max diff. Freon air conditioning's off. Can't be on at this altitude. It gives us
Now the ATC let me do 15 degrees right for weather. I am aware that when I feel like I'm okay enough, I'll let him know when I could go back to the original request he had for me, which is direct Helens. So that'll come up once I feel comfortable that it's going to be okay for me to make that left turn.
210, and if it works for you, I'm going to show that as the final.
210 is perfect. 70 Charlie Golf.
657 traffic.
Okay, so he let me go up to 210. That's great, no problem there.
Who are you? Where are you?
Aviation 0 Charlie Golf, traffic is here 12 o'clock, about 25 miles northbound at Citation, Delta, level 220, maintain level 210.
Okay, we'll be looking for that. Maintain 210, 70 Charlie Golf.
That was the 1,000-foot alert there a few seconds ago.
Just to make sure I have the call sign right, that was Jazz 657 looking for that heading, is that right?
That's affirmative, Jazz 657.
657, right.
So I'm on the lookout for that traffic, but I'm also on the lookout that my autopilot's going to level off at flight level 210.
Jazz 657, roger, flight heading 330.
Nose is coming down. I could reduce some power.
Center 70 Charlie Golf. We can go direct Helens right now if you want.
Citation 0 Charlie Golf, okay, thank you.
Direct Helens 70 Charlie Golf.
Okay, so I kind of looking outside, and direct Helens making like a 20-degree left turn is really not a problem. So I'm just gonna go back direct to Helens so I'm not like arbitrarily flying around on my own headings anymore. It's just better for everybody if I know where I'm going and ATC knows where I'm going.
Okay, so we're cruise. Let's just do the checklist. Pressurization's checked. All the other items don't really matter. I'm going to look at the plate. Arrival. Helen 6. Crater 12000 is what we're expecting.
So even though I've done this arrival so many times, I'm still looking at it like as if I've never seen it before. So I just pull it up and I see to expect crater at 12000. So there is no descent via on this arrival. It's just an expect, and we always get it. New piece of paper for writing notes for the approach and writing the ATIS of the destination.
Crater 12000, 3002, 70 Charlie Golf. Okay, we're cleared, so it's 12000.
So I don't know if you heard him, but he did say cross crater at 12000. So I'm just setting the altitude pre-select to 12000 since we're cleared, and it's going to be our discretion when we start descending.
RNAV 31 left, we'll just start it at Flower, load.
Actually, I want to start it at Mules. So I already did the VNAV, so it's going to tell me the vertical speed required at any point in this cruise to get to crater at 12000. I just turned on the defogs. We need them for the descent, or else it can kind of get, we could get a foggy window.
We're going to do the visual, backed up with RNAV, runway 20 closed, that's a NOTAM, and then circling for 31 left. Circling minimum, so it doesn't reflect us. Okay, let's start a descent.
So at about 1500 feet per minute vertical speed required, that's when I'll start pointing the nose down. That'll put us at about a 2000 foot per minute descent because we're going to accelerate on our way down. We're going to go much faster. So it'll kind of end up being 1800 to 2000 feet a minute descent, which is what we like to do in the jets.
Defog, cabin pressurization, let's set all the bugs. Landing at 9000, 97, 103, 97, 103.
I'm setting all my landing speeds, the VREF, VAP, VNR, just in case we have to go around a single engine.
3002.
And I'll just go ahead and set the altimeter.
3002. Vertical speed.
But now that I pitch down manually with a pitch command wheel, when I press VS, it'll hold that vertical speed.
Next one is flight level 180. Altimeter is recognition, seatbelt signs, air conditioning we don't need. Approach briefing complete.
A couple of minutes ago, I already turned on the engine anti-ice again. They're not going to eat up a lot of the power out of the engines, and we don't need a lot of power anyway for the descent, so better safe than sorry. And we are going to get a bunch of ice on the way down.
Up.
So now that the nose is pointing down, we're painting too much ground, so I'm going to tilt the weather radar a little bit up. But my rule of thumb is if I actually need the onboard weather radar, real-time weather, then I shouldn't be going flying. I don't want to dodge thunderstorms to that degree. I'm playing with a pitch command wheel. I'm not happy with my vertical speed, so I'm just adjusting it to find the perfect vertical speed that I want that will put me at crater at 12000. And then I press VS again and it will hold that vertical speed.
How those boots working? Let's see.
Turn on the boots.
2435, 70 Charlie.
So now I'm going to contact approach for the first time, so I have to give him the ATIS.
Approach, good evening, Citation 70 Charlie Golf 17300, descending 12000, crater with Romeo.
Citation 70 Charlie Golf, approach, good evening, runway 3111. Advise French Romeo, altimeter 3003.
We have Romeo and expecting 31 left, 70 Charlie Golf.
That's such a typical thing. I let them know on initial contact I have the current ATIS, and then they get back to me and say, let me know when you have the current ATIS. So I'm thinking I'm painting ground here because of my low pitch attitude, so I'm just raising the tilt on the weather radar.
90,070 Charlie Golf.
So now that we got 9,000, a descend and maintain 9,000, the crossing restriction, crater 12,000, completely disappeared. Now we can cross crater at 13,000. It really doesn't matter. So I'm using the pitch command wheel to shallow my descent rate, and then I'll go back to VS mode to lock it on. Here we go. So I'm gonna look at my left wing here and notice all of a sudden there's a bunch of ice there.
Oh, that's a lot of ice.
So I'm gonna pop open the boots, and the way that it works is that the for the first 6 seconds, the left horizontal stabilizer boot and the vertical stabilizer boot are gonna inflate. Then they stop, and then it's gonna be the left wing, right wing, and the right horizontal stabilizer. If you notice, if you look closely, my annunciator light, that light there that's on is the right side engine anti-ice. It just means that it's not heating up completely to what we need it to, and that's what that light is telling us. But it is getting hot, definitely hot enough to melt ice. If I want that light to go away, I just need to introduce a little bit more power. So on descents, it's usually kind of an issue. We don't have enough power to get the full heating for the engine nacelles.
More ice. More ice.
So we got more ice, but again, it's not really a cause for concern. I could let it build up for quite a bit before I deal with it and open up the boots again. So some people will wait till they get a quarter or even half an inch of ice before they pop open the boots.
Present heading down to 7,070 Charlie Golf. Heading mode 7. I see 7, and I'm armed.
So we got our first heading from ATC, so their arrival completely disappeared. Everything in it, if there are any speed restrictions, they're all gone. Their arrival's gone, and I'm just going to sequence into the approach somewhere, so that way I could get some VNAV data about how fast I should descend. In a jet, I don't want to descend too fast, because down low we just burn way too much fuel. So I want to stay as high as possible for as long as possible. So I'll do the shallowest descent that I can. I would say this part of the flight was the nastiest for sure. It's just, you know, it's pretty turbulent. There's a lot of ice, a lot of rain and snow just hitting the windshield. I'm holding onto the yoke just in case, you know, if the autopilot disconnects. If the autopilot has to work too hard, eventually it'll just give up and disconnect. So I just hold on to the yoke just in case, as a habit or paranoia, whatever you want to call it. So we're just in vertical speed mode, descending at about 1,000 feet per minute, 7,000 set and armed, and we're on heading mode. And I have us sequenced into the approach. I think I have it direct Nike right now. Even though we're not cleared direct Nike or anything, it looks like we're kind of on the heading to match Nike. So that's where I have the Garmin set to. There is that rain. It's really loud in the cockpit. Checking in, making sure they're not, you know, freaking out. They don't care. They don't know what's going on over there.
You know, the temperature is not so bad. It's like, I don't know if we're gonna get ice. It's kind of warm. It's just fucking raining.
Yeah, I think it was like 4 degrees about now. But I'm gonna leave the engine into ice on and still watch out for icing. It could still happen up to 10 degrees Celsius.
That's 7,000. Head mode. That's a lot of AMC.
Alternated whiskey current, throttle altimeter 3004.
3004.
Altimeter 3002. Visual approach is in use, landing and departing runway 31 left, runway 31 right. Caution for bird activity within the vicinity of Hillsborough Airport. Note of taxiway Charlie between Charlie 5 and Alpha, Bravo 5, Charlie 5, 80.
Sorry, I was listening to the new ATIS. Say again, 70 Charlie Golf.
Station 70 Charlie Golf, Hillsborough information, Sierra is current 0253, observation, wind 340 at 3, visibility 10, sky clear, temperature 23, dew point 13, altimeter is 3002.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, 70 Charlie Golf.
So he just gave me the new ATIS while I was listening to it.
Approach, speed bugs, and fan is all set. Approach briefing complete. Altitude bugs and radio altimeters are set. Fuel remaining about 600. That's what I expected.
I'm just running through that approach checklist. I do that about 10,000 feet. Hey, Gio. We're out of the clouds now, so... And we're gonna get some pretty beautiful views. It's a
I don't need the
sunset
weather
flight.
radar anymore.
Yeah, we don't need the weather radar.
Oh, radar off.
Bye bye.
Bye. Just give me the map.
I always make sure that the Garmin is set at like the biggest zoom possible. I zoom in as much as possible while seeing everything, especially in the approach phase.
Down to 7,000. We're armed. We're on vertical speed mode, about 1,000 feet per minute, and we're on heading mode.
That's kind of a habit that I do. It's just I just once in a while I just kind of like review everything that's happening with the autopilot. Hey, we're down to 7. It is armed. It says 7. We're on heading mode. We're on vertical speed
Turn
mode.
left 1707.
I'll tell you what he's doing right now, just from experience of flying this arrival so many times.
Right over PDX.
Exactly. That's right now. Get us right over PDX. They love putting us right over the top of Portland International Airport because, contrary to like what some people who don't understand aviation might think, right over the airport, we're completely out of their way. Nobody's flying Nobody's flying over the airport at 4,000 feet.
IC4, and we're armed.
At least when we're talking about like landing traffic airlines at Portland International Airport, they're not going to be over the airport at 4,000 feet. They're landing or departing. They're going to be really low. So at 4,000 feet right over the airport we're just out of their way. And everybody's happy.
Right over PDX, Portland International Airport, is right over the top of it. We are the most out of the way possible.
Charlie Golf, contact approach 118.1.
118.1, good evening, 70 Charlie. 8.
290, clear direct on speed, just want to maintain 7,000.
19.3. Portland approach, good afternoon, good evening, 70 Charlie Golf, 7,300, descending 4,000.
70 Charlie Golf, Portland approach, good evening.
So this is my second approach controller.
Engine sync, I'll just leave on for now.
So this.
Hey, how's the temperature back there?
Yeah, I guess a good pilot has to watch out for the passengers too. I wish they had their own temperature controller. They could just do this job themselves. But I was saying this is my second approach frequency. So I'm pretty confident this will be the guy or gal that gives me the clearance. So that's why I put tower on standby. Again, just trying to always stay ahead of the airplane here. Whatever I can do, even if it's the smallest task, to accomplish right now so I don't have to do it later.
Left turn, wind be southwest 1288 next. Or southwest 2193, 1.5. Yeah, we're quiet. Clement via the mini. Southwest 2193, 400.
looking at my Garmin right now as I'm commentating on this, and I should really be zooming in. There is some room there to zoom in one more click.
Citation 0 Charlie Golf, turn right heading 00.
20070 Charlie Golf.
Pretty soon here I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to ask for the RNAV just for fun, just to practice.
Downtown Portland, straight over there. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Just to practice shooting the RNAVs in the autopilot mode, because the autopilot doesn't do well if I shoot them too fast. So this is going to be like an exercise in energy management. Get nice and slow early, so that way the autopilot can shoot the approach really well and stable. If it was heavy IMC, I'll definitely want to be using the autopilot for the entire approach.
Thanks for that, Southwest 1288 north. Southwest 2193, turn left turn 80. Turn direct 80, Southwest 2193.
Finally, man.
We're going to sequence between Nike and Intel.
That's what it looks like. It looks like our heading is putting us between Nike and Intel, so I'm just going to highlight that magenta line. We call it, as you guys know, sequence.
Feet to go. I'm going to get the warning. Dip
Beep.
coming down.
Beep. Here it is.
Okay, let's continue with that checklist. Engine sync, local altimeter set. We're in GPS mode. Approach is confirmed. Annunciator panel is clear. Next one's pressurization is coming down. I can throw on the landing lights. I can throw on the igniters.
The ignitions are good to put on right now. Just in case we suck in a bird, then we'll get a relight automatically.
Let's do the RNAV. And approach 70 Charlie Golf, can we do the RNAV, please?
Citation 0 Charlie Golf, Roger, and for that approach, go ahead and turn left heading 180.
Left 180, 70 Charlie Golf, thank you. Here we go, left 180.
I have nothing but amazing experience with.
400 feet to go.
I have great experience with ATC here in the Pacific Northwest. Hillsborough Tower, Portland approach, Seattle Center, Seattle approach. It's just Renton Tower. They're just amazing. They're on their game. Just good attitude all the time. It's just such a pleasure. Everybody's just working as a team, right?
Zoom in. There you go.
Yeah, zoom.
Let's see if we can do it with the autopilot. There's 4,000 capture.
So right now I'm already below 202 knots, which means that I'm within the flaps approach speed.
Flaps speed check.
Oh.
Below 202.
You read my mind, Gnome. Yeah, airplane's gonna balloon a little bit for that. Come back to 4,000. A little bit more power. It's a little bit of drag. Most of the drag is on the flaps land. It's on the last notch. This is just lift.
Turn right heading 220 to center maintain 3,000.
220 down to 3,000, 70 Charlie. 220 and 3,000. Altitude select.
So that 220 heading, that's a nice proper base leg. 3,000 might be like the highest he could give me. It's his MVA in this area, probably. I'd have to check. Using the pitch wheel. So it's just pitch mode. And I'm choosing to lock on the vertical speed right now, about 1,000 feet a minute.
500 to go.
I think the energy is pretty under control. Zoom in one more time, that's great.
300 to go.
And if I'm below 176 knots, I could drop the gear, so that's a lot more drag. And I think I'm within it right now.
Charlie Golf is 4
from Intel, turn right heading 280, maintain 3000, tell status on final approach course. You cleared our nav, runway 3 without reserve.
280, maintain 3000, tell status cleared, RNAV 3, 1 left, 70, Charlie Golf, thank you.
Okay, so 280 on the bug, and I'm gonna arm
I can nav it. Arm nav.
I'm arming nav. I wonder why I didn't just arm approach.
Looks like it's taking me there.
Why am I not arming approach?
Approach.
There you go. No, come on, man. You know better. Cool. So the nav is already, it's navving, and approach won't turn green until we get the glide path. Glide path for our navs, glide slope for ILS. Now here it is.
Glide slope capture, reduce power.
I hate that horn. It's, you know what it's telling me. It's telling me, hey, that's too little power. Why is your gear not down? Are you trying to land with your gear up? But I got a little silence button.
Have a good day. Contact tower, 70, Charlie Golf.
I got a little silence the horn button there on the
Speed's under control.
on the throttles.
So autopilot's gonna work great. Silver Tower, good evening. Citation 70, Charlie Golf, RNAV 3, 1 left.
Look at the windshield.
Charlie Golf, Hillsborough Tower, runway 31 left, clear to land.
3, 1 left, clear to land, 70, Charlie Golf.
You see that fog? That's the ACM working overtime. It's set too cold, so pretty soon I'm gonna have to heat it up. Setting the missed approach altitude.
And look, we're accelerating.
Such a slippery airplane.
Let's warm it up.
Yeah, warm it up and that fog will go away. There you go. I don't like to be that spool down on the engines. It probably would have been better to just put the gear down already and get a little drag, because we're accelerating down the glide slope.
Speed checks, gear down.
Hold down. Keep your hand on that thing until you see 3 greens.
There's the fucking autopilot doing its shit.
Yeah, the autopilot's chasing now. There was a configuration change. Let's see if it can find its way by itself. I'm too fast. I'm too fast for this old autopilot.
Still like medium flap speed checks.
Yeah, I have any choice on the flaps. I could go between the settings.
Green, no red. Miss approach altitude is set. Brakes. Test.
I'm fogging up. I'm gonna turn on the windshield anti-ice. It's bleed air from the engine. It's just gonna heat it from the outside. Getting a little fog.
To go, yaw dampener to go. Precision altitude repeated, not applicable.
Cool, that defogged it. I don't need the windshield anti-ice anymore.
Add a little power.
Now that's drag. Flaps approach is lift. Flaps land is a little bit more lift, but just a ton of drag. It's just essentially speed brakes.
Landing checklist is complete.
And it vibrates the airplane quite a bit. It's not smooth. You feel it. And you need to add power.
Green, no red, flaps land. And indicating clear to land, lights on.
So already completed the before landing checklist.
Away, yaw damps to go.
So I turned off the autopilot by just trimming, which kept the yaw damper on.
A little hot.
I have to tell you guys, I love this phase of flight right here. Just, oh, just watching it right now. I'm just loving it.
Jesus, that was loud.
500. So I got 3 green, no red.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm clear to land. The only thing to go here is the yaw damper. I wonder if I forget to turn it off. I can still steer, but it on the ground, but it fights me.
Short final circuit, 3 green, no red. Clear to land.
Good, I clicked it off. You're not supposed to land with it on. It's just hard to steer. The servo fights your feet. It's kind of bullshit. You'd think the squat switch would turn it off, but they're just geniuses. I love this. Look at that. My hand is ready. My thumb is ready on the speed brake. As soon as I touch down, pop. Thanks, babe. Thrust reversers.
Hey, you know, it wasn't the softest landing, but did you die?
No, you didn't die because you're watching it on YouTube. Such a dork.
Station 0 Charlie Golf, stay parking.
Air 70 Charlie Golf.
Station 0 Charlie Golf, left turn off the runway, taxi parking via Alpha 5, monogram point 7, good day.
Alpha 5, monogram point 7, good day, 70 Charlie Golf.
Okay, I'll probably run through some flows here. Close the thrust reversers, flaps on approach, speed brakes off, igniters off, anti-collision off, landing lights off.
367 Delta Alpha Hillsboro Tower.
I'll talk about that in a little bit because I know there's a lot of philosophy about whether we should be doing that right now or not.
Clear left, clear right. Let's go to the checklist. Pitot heats off. Weather radar, turn off. I don't want to give anybody cancer. Landing lights, anti-collisions. Speed brakes are retracted. Ignitions are normal, anti-ice, all off.
So I kind of agree with the idea of...
AC again.
I'm going to turn on the AC. I kind of agree with the idea of not putting up the flaps, you know, while rolling down the runway, because you could accidentally put the gear up. But there's a solenoid inside of my gear handle. Technically, theoretically, I should not be able to lift the gear handle up right now. It's mechanically locked. The squat switches are saying I'm on the ground. I should be able to lift it.
Tell me why. There's a Marshall.
After we land, the engines are very loose. Like they spin freely, so idle is actually very strong, so you end up riding the brakes. That's why earlier I had the thrust reversers on. Just right or left, just one of the thrust reversers on. So that way you're not riding the brakes.
Parking spot in the house, man. Come on. Maybe they just feel bad for me because it's such an old piece of shit.
It is a piece of shit. But it's my piece of shit.
We don't discriminate here at air or air.
No, they don't. We frequently see like 152s parking here. They don't care. They're like, first come, first serve. Get the good spot. They're nice guys. I like this FBO. That's why I park. The plane parks in that huge hangar up front here, hangar 5. Now, when I shut down the engines, I always want to make sure that the ITTs don't rise, because you could have this rare situation where a fire could start in there, and now they'll go up, and I have to press the start button again to blow out the flame, blow it out the back. So I'm kind of, believe it or not, I'm actually peeking at it right now, but it's good now. It's not going to catch on fire. I have the best passengers. They don't tip, but they do clap.
You're such a pussy, man.
Oh, my wife was scared in this flight. I forgot to tell her there were going to be turbulence.
Yeah.
Oops. She didn't drink enough. She said, like, oh, if I knew there was going to be turbulence, I would have drank more before we took off. So that's my bad.
You're pretty good, man.
among some of the